Hello, folks. This is Eddie Carson, and you are listening to Race Matters here at WJOP, Joppa Radio 96.3. And I'm excited today because I have a brilliant guest on, and we're going to really continue to delve into the funk, particularly in thinking about some of the conversations that are happening nationally, especially over the introduction of a new course, AP, Advanced Placement African American Studies. And that's gotten quite a bit of headline, particularly out of the state of Florida. And I believe to some extent, even Texas, where there's been some pushback, especially on the subscribed curriculum that's there and some of the concerns that are there. So my guest today is a brilliant educator by the name of Allison Ewing, who has really engaged in a number of wonderful subject matter elements. She has engaged in just a plethora of teaching aspects and served in leadership positions, really have engaged in thinking about the reality of being a woman of color. But I'm not going to talk about her. I'm going to let her tell her story a little bit more as we think about this. So, Allison, welcome to Race Matters. How you doing, my friend?
Hi, Eddie. I'm good. Thanks for having me today. I'm really excited to be here with you.
Oh, that makes two of us. So, Allison, where are you coming from?
Yeah, so I was born and raised in New Mexico and went to school at University of Michigan, but now I'm living in the Mid-Atlantic and teaching in Maryland, just outside of DC. And I've been in education for 17 years and started off in Nashville, Tennessee in a master's program. And I've taught um, fourth through eighth grade, social studies and Spanish. I've taught a lot of different AP and IB classes. I've also been a school administrator, assistant principal, dean of students. And now I'm back in the classroom and I'm loving it. I missed being in the classroom. So I am really excited to see students every day and to see more students than I see administrators and teachers.
I'm confused. So, are you telling me, and I've never heard this one before, you don't miss being an administrator?
I don't miss being an administrator. I miss supporting teachers. I miss supporting students in a more in a deeper way. I think when you're an administrator, you actually get to know a student in a more holistic 360 way, as opposed to when you're a teacher. Because when you're a teacher, you have them for 45 minutes and then they're off to the next place, and you've got 45 minutes to make the connection. But when you're an administrator, because you have a wider lens, you also have a wider responsibility, and I take that very seriously. And so I'm just at a time in my life where I need my responsibility to be focused on my little girls and building my capacity as a teacher in the classroom and being with students that way. So I'm excited.
Two,
I'm
two,
glad to
two,
be back in the classroom.
two young girls.
Yeah, I have two little girls. I have a 6.5-year-old and a 4-year-old. So they keep me on my toes.
No, I can imagine. Well, and I've told you this before. If you ever need a babysitter, don't call me. I'm the world's worst babysitter. I'm struggling just to manage my four-legged creature named Baxter here every single day. So that doesn't work at all. You know,
No worries.
so in thinking about, the places you've been, you have, you grew up in New Mexico.
Mhm,
You're living in the greater DC area right
mhm.
now. You went to undergrad at the University of Michigan, and you did
Yep.
graduate
So,
studies at Vanderbilt University
mhm,
down in the deep south of Nashville.
yep.
So, you know, tell us a little bit about your experience. What did you major in at the University of Michigan?
Yeah, so I majored in history and Spanish, and it's funny you're asking about that because actually just today my students asked me how I knew what I wanted to major in because they're all in the application process, and I think they feel like they have to figure out what they want to be when they grow up and kind of thing. I said, well, actually, I went to Michigan and it was time for me to declare a major. And I went to my advisor and we looked at my credits and figured out that I actually was about halfway towards a history and Spanish major. So that's how that kind of happened. I went to school and I just took classes I was interested in. It turned out to be those two subject areas. So that's how I ended up in those fields.
That is wonderful. What drives your passion more than anything for teaching history?
Yeah, I think it's the storytelling. My both my grandfathers were actually very my grandfather on my mother's side was an educator, and his passion was history, and he actually helped to educate soldiers during that were at risk of not getting drafted because for World War II because of their low reading levels. And so my grandfather got into education for tutoring these potential soldiers so that they could pass the exams and go off and fight in World War II. And so it's in my blood. And both my grandfathers, I remember, they're storytellers. They would sit around and they would tell us stories about our family, or we would travel someplace, and both of my grandfathers would tell me a story about the people that lived there, the museum we were seeing, or the train tracks we were riding on, or whatever. And it was a story, and I love that about history. And I don't know, I've never tried, I'm not a math teacher, but I think it's really hard to tell a story about the Pythagorean theorem. um
I'm just
so
happy I know what that is.
right, well, I kind of I hope
A
my
squared plus B squared equals
yes,
C
I hope
squared.
my
You
high
tie the
school
formula in there.
math, yes, and I hope my high school math teacher isn't listening to this, but um
I
yeah,
look, I hope my high school math teacher is listening. They're like, oh, he learned
like,
something.
hey, oh, he remembers.
That may be the only thing he remembers.
I know, right? I know. But yeah, I mean, I think that my best moments in my classroom are when I get to tell a story as opposed to telling my students to memorize the, names of famous dead people, you know. So yeah, that's what I love
Yeah.
about it.
I mean, that's always the element. So you talked about your family and your background. You're you identify as a woman of color, a multiracial woman of
Mhm.
color from New Mexico. New Mexico. Tell us a little bit about your racial identity and why that's so important to you.
Yeah, so my upbringing was very eclectic. There in New Mexico, I'm half Latina and half Chinese, and I identify very strongly with both cultures. My appearance, if I have people who tell me I look more Chinese or I look more Mexican or Latina, and then I have people who are like, well, I don't know what you are, or well, you could pass, or so I'm very I know that I have an innate privilege in myself that I can sort of occupy spaces that other women of color may not be able to occupy. And at the same time, I know that, yeah, I don't know what's going to come through that door and what people are going to perceive about me. So I'm very intentional about it, but also being multiracial is quite a bit of responsibility too, and a lot of having to bring awareness to that um, in any interaction that I'm involved in, especially with my students, because it's really important to them to me that they see who I really am, and I can bring that every day. So I'm very intentional about sharing who I am and where I'm from. I will say, growing up in New Mexico, it's an incredibly diverse state, and so I remember moving to Michigan and being very surprised. It didn't look like New Mexico anymore. And so I think actually being in Michigan sort of awakened that racial identity in myself, and really having to understand what it meant to be multiracial. Because in New Mexico and in Hawaii, where the Chinese side of my family is from, most people are multiracial. So this wasn't a groundbreaking concept to me. And then I went to Michigan and had to explain it to people. So it was, it was an adjustment. But I like that it's also I know it's strange to say, I like that it's a conversation starter. It's a way for me to help engage students in these conversations because um, it's a touch point that they have, that they can sort of have these conversations with me without the risk of saying the wrong thing or doing the wrong thing, because we have that personal connection. So I really enjoy that growing phase for them.
No, I think identities are really important, and
Mhm.
we all have a lot of different touch points when it comes to our identities, whether it's whether we're able-bodied or not, whether we are our gender, sexual orientation, our race, our ethnicity, geography, and we can go on and on and on about the things that define us. And, I always have a great time engaging my students, particularly in the geographical aspect of my identity, for the fact that they all know I'm a Black man, but yet you compound that with being a Black man from the deep South living in New England, and there's a level of nuance that's there that really makes even the dynamics of our class conversations super, super intriguing, right?
Mhm.
I mean, in my classes, I get to talk about race in the Deep South and a lot of stuff and experiences and the things that I've observed, even beyond the textbooks aspects that are there that are fun. And, and since we're talking about courses, what are you teaching right now?
So right now I'm teaching US history, and which is one of the core classes in my district, and AP psychology. So I'm definitely a little bit out of my comfort zone with the AP psychology, but it's been a really fantastic course to teach. Actually, I actually showed the movie The Sandlot today to my students, and
Is that the Sam? I know I've seen that's the little kids playing baseball, right?
yes,
Is that the one where
yeah,
where the dog chases them?
yes.
I've seen that. I'm excited. Someone said something I've seen before. Okay.
Yeah, it's such a good movie. And it's such a good movie. And I was able to show it to them. And so I never thought in a million years I'd be able to show that movie in an educational way to students. So it was really cool. Yeah.
Well, I am definitely curious to learn maybe another time the connection between psychology and Sandlot, uh,
Yeah.
which I'm super intrigued by. You
Yeah.
know, but one of the things that we talked about that you are embarking on right now is the fact that you are now in a process of preparing to teach the College Board's new course, the Advanced Placement, also known as AP African American Studies, going into next year. So, question I have for you is, what was your reaction when you heard the College Board was now going to offer a an AP African American Studies course? I'm curious because I remember my reaction when I got an email in my inbox, and about my history and my relationship and my past with the College Board
I
and the
do.
work I've done with them, and
Mhm.
I'm always inundated. And I got this, and I'll admit I was like, there was a degree of suspicion when I saw that, and not for the reasons why some people may wonder or think. What
Yeah.
did you think when you got that email in your inbox that this was a course that was being offered?
I I I jumped for joy. I actually I don't I remember when I found out, I actually forwarded, I think it was a news article. It wasn't an email. Like I heard it through some news article, and I screenshotted it. And this is before I knew you, Eddie. So I
That makes me
screenshot
feel
it.
okay. That's
I
good.
know,
All right.
right? And so I don't want you to feel bad I didn't send it to you, but I
Okay, that's
screenshot
all
it,
right.
and
That's
I
good.
sent it. I sent it to a another AP Human Geography. One of my other areas of expertise that I love teaching is AP Human Geography, and I sent it to him because he and I have always been on the same wavelength in terms of how we bring race into our conversations and into our classroom. I sent it to him, and he was in the middle of class, and he it's so funny, he actually like stopped his class and called me back and was like, what? So he called me in the middle of class, and we were so excited that College Board was creating in the process of creating this class. And I know the amount of work it goes into creating an AP class and sustaining an AP class and all the things that go into it. And so the fact that College Board was willing to put their money and resources and human power behind this was really incredible. And so I actually tried to get in touch with them to be like, can I be the first one to teach it? And I couldn't find the contact information. So I missed the boat on the pilot, but I tried
I mean,
anyway.
those pilot aspects are really interesting. Particularly you talk about the challenges, the work to organize, to structure,
Yeah.
to have folks really do the scholarship and the work in
Mhm.
crafting a course like this. Your experience when you found out about it was much more exciting than my experience when I found out. I got the email that came through my inbox, and it said AP African American Studies. And I'll admit, I will raise my hand right here. I'll testify, do whatever I have to do. I was suspicious. I was suspicious mainly because of I questioned the motive initially of the College Board in terms of crafting and structuring and designing a course like this, because we know teaching a African American Studies course is so much more nuanced and different than teaching a historical course. It really requires a body of work and, to some extent, but not fully nor completely, aspects of lived experiences and thinking about the dynamics of the curriculum that was there. So I saw it and I thought, well, I wonder, is this the College Board still reaching to try to expand maybe to a point where they're grossing and making more money, right?
Mhm.
And trying to build courses. And would this course be successful? So that went through my head. I will be the first one to say I never had any interest in teaching AP African American Studies.
No, really.
No, nope, nope. I don't teach a lot these days, but I have taught African American studies. And I think my suspicion, which was the fact that, if I'm going to teach an AP course, it has to be the AP course that I create. It's
Mhm.
have to be the African American studies in which I get to, think about my research and the work that I've done. And I get to design, and I don't have to stress over coverage, that
Mhm.
whole notion of breadth over depth, and all the stress that goes in with pacing and timing and all of this.
Mhm.
But I've looked at the curriculum, and it's a great curriculum. Uh,
Solid
it,
curriculum.
it is really,
Yeah.
really good. It is dynamic. So this is not a criticism
Mhm.
aimed at the College Board. I just know that the things that I want to focus on. So that being said, why teach AP African American Studies versus just teaching African American Studies?
So that's a great question. So one of the schools I was at previously, several schools ago, I actually introduced and created an African American Studies elective course. I was department chair at the time and was getting a lot of feedback from students that this was a course that was missing. And so and while this course exists at the college level, it doesn't really exist like an elective. It doesn't exist at a high school level. And so I had to create this course from scratch. And um I don't even remember how I went about doing it, but I did it and I taught it 1 year. And then due to scheduling and various things that happened as department chair, I had to hand that over to someone else, and the teacher did an amazing job with it. I was so honored by the way that she taught it. Like, she did a better job of it than I did with it, and I felt good handing it over to someone. So I've created that course. And I was so sad to let go. I was so sad, but I had to, as department chair, I had to like take on another section of something else in order to balance out sections for the department. But anyway, I left it in really amazing hands, and it's still going strong at the school that I was at. It's still there. And the thing about an AP class that I have discovered is that it legitimizes what students want to do. in their college. I've been in parent teacher conferences, and I've sat across from parents and students, and the parent wants the kid to take AP calculus, whatever, and AP macro and micro, you can, have sort of build this, because I actually had one parent say that those are real majors. Right, because they have like these AP classes, and they like feed into, schools, and you get credits for it. And this kid really wanted to take an AP like social studies class. I think it was AP World or something they wanted to take. And I'm fighting for this kid to be able to take this class, but the parents want them to take something else. And so I see this as a path for us to put resources behind where we need to be in terms of curriculum. This isn't just about the course. This is about legitimizing what students want to study, and it's about themselves, and it's about their families, and it's about this is the first course where they're going to see the story of their family told, and they're going to get credit for it, and they're going to go to college and be able to say, I took this course in one of its, in its founding year, and I'm part of building this. Because one of the great things the College Board does is they really do seek feedback. So they had their first articulation of the course curriculum. I've been sort of looking at it and tracking it and highlighting it. And
No, well, I mean, you should be. You're
yeah,
preparing to
because I'm
possibly
curious.
teach it.
Exactly. And then they about a month ago, they published like the one that we're going to use next year. And there was a difference. And I could tell that they had really been going back to the teachers that are teaching it. They had been going back to the students, and they had made adjustments. And they even now have this 3-week project at the end where students do their own project of something that they are interested in. The teacher scores it, and that's part of their AP exam. I'm like, this is brilliant that students are themselves. And I don't just mean Black and African American students are seeing themselves, but any student is seeing themselves in this curriculum, because they are part of the outcome. And so whoever had that idea, I need to meet them and shake their hand. And I'm really excited to grade these projects, and in record time at the end of next year. But and I can see why some people were skeptical about AP doing this, but I think AP has such a long history of establishing norms and expectations. I think it's groundbreaking that they're doing this. And I mean, what can a school say now? We're not going to offer it. Well, why not? It's an AP class. You offer AP calculus. Why can't you offer this? So I think it gives people a more legitimacy and rationale to even challenge why it wouldn't be offered. So I'm excited to be part of that.
No,
Yeah.
you should. And I'm looking forward to having future conversations about, how that course materializes. And I hope that, with my knowledge and expertise, that I'm a guest in your classroom speaking.
I've already figured out I've already mapped out when that would be. I have a rough estimate, so I'll book you for 2025.
Look, trust me, I will show up, because I always do. One of the things I love about African American studies, and this is true for AP African American studies, is that it is a studies approach. It integrates, it's an interdisciplinary course. Art, literature, right? Yeah, history. You have, anthropological, sociological aspects that really define, right, what this course is about, and really thinking about the narrative of a people over a period of time, especially in terms of their challenges, but also the accomplishments that they've been able to gain over a period of time. That being said, we also know that there have been some challenges from some state legislatures. Of course, the state of Florida comes to mind, where they've pushed back on the initial proposal of the AP African American Studies course, saying that it was driven by an agenda. It had an ideological aspect to it, which, is interesting because Black people, in a way, are ideological with a narrative and a history of struggle that's there. What are your thoughts on some of the national conversations and debates over this
Yeah.
course?
Yeah, I will say I am really lucky and very fortunate to be teaching in a place where um, equity and inclusion are part of our lexicon and our daily vocabulary. Our teachers at my school have shirts that say equity and inclusion on the. I mean, it's baked into what we do, which is really great. I mean, I will admit when I sort of had this thought and wanted to make the proposal of, can we teach this next year? I definitely had my bulleted list of reasons why to teach it and my bulleted reasons to counter the reasons that would come at me for not teaching it. I mean, I was ready to go in and make my case, and it was really I didn't have to use any of my bullet points at all. So I'm really fortunate in that sense. I am aware, though, that there are people and communities that don't see this as either being necessary. I have heard of people saying, well, we already teach US history, so why do we need this? Okay, so then that gets into a deeper, larger conversation that is more than just 5-minute elevator conversation in between floors. And so I've heard people say that, and I think as much as I wish I could engage in the debate and everything, I think my role as an educator is to, the proof is in the pudding. When we when we have been teaching it for 5 years and 10 years and 15 years, we're going to look back on it. And I do think that the wider community is going to say, how could, are going to look back on it and say, how did we not have this course? How is it possible that we didn't have this course? And I think that's the goal. And we're a little ways off from it, but I think we're actually getting closer. And I'm excited that this course is being taught in places all over the country that are maybe further in their equity and inclusion work. That's fantastic because that keeps it going. And then there's that teacher maybe in Alabama or Florida that is going to teach it, and we're all behind them. We're going to help them out. And one of the things I love about the AP Institutes over the summer is, the teachers come together over the summer and we all learn about the class and how to teach it. And we leave with everyone's phone numbers and emails and, kind of thing. And so I know that we are going to help each other to teach it across the country, both locally and regionally and nationally. And so I'm not worried about it. I am aware that when I tell people I teach this course, they're going to have a lot of questions for me. So I need to have answers. Because if I don't have answers as the teacher, that's going to be an opening for them to challenge it. But I'm not worried. I think we're going to be okay. I really think we're going to be okay. And I think also when colleges start giving college credit for the class, ooh, I can earn how many college credits for this?
Right.
Oh, that helps. That helps a lot. So I think that's going to help.
Is this a year-long or a semester course for
It's a
you?
year-long course. Yeah. And so I
And
know
I've never taught the course for an entire year. I've usually
really.
taught it, like for a semester, then I'll teach maybe a course on, Black Christianity or another course, elective course at the semester. But I mean, that gives you a lot of leeway in terms of being creative without worrying to have to speed through the course in a semester time.
Yeah. And I'm really excited about that. I'm excited to have the course outline and looking at the course outline. This one is really interesting because um they there's not real, most AP courses you have to show that you have an approved textbook and you have to, click
Oh,
on,
the AP audit process
yeah, the
that's there.
audit, I'm using the third edition of whatever, and kind of thing. And in this case, actually, from as far as I can tell, unless they make a change, but as far as I can tell, there is no textbook. It's the sort of primary documents that have been identified that will, illuminate and illustrate, the certain time periods or the events or the people or the things that we needed to illuminate. So we need to show that we are going to use that. But I think it's really neat because actually, if you think about it, African American studies, while it's certainly been a field of study for many years now, those books are still being written. And when I tell my students about Henry Louis Gates Jr. being one of the greatest scholars of African American history, and actually one of my students was like, "Oh, well, when did he die?" And I was like, "No, no, 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 no.
Still alive.
He's still alive. He's still writing the history, as opposed to, the guy that we, looked at in the 1930s, so they're not realizing that this, scholarship is like it's being written in real time in a sense. And we're now just uncovering so much about African American history and the diaspora and the contributions and the challenges. And one of the things that I will never forget, when the National African American History Museum opened in DC, I went, and I still can't get it out of my head how many of those artifacts were not found in the basement of one of the Smithsonian's, right? So many of those artifacts were unwrapped from the chests that had been passed down from generation to generation, and very preciously and gingerly and with love and care given to the Smithsonian so that it could be displayed. And how long these artifacts and these things have lived in family Bibles and wooden chests and picture frames and all these things. And these are things that had never come to light until we have this sacred place to house all these things. And so it's amazing to me because what else is going to come, what else is going to come to the surface, what else is going to come to light. I mean, Nat Turner's Bible was found in someone's house in their attic, and they called someone at the Smithsonian and said, "I think I have Nat Turner's Bible. You want to come look at it?" I mean, no,
No, and those are the exciting
happened,
things about being able to delve into a course like this. So folks who are just chiming in, you're listening to Race Matters. I'm Eddie Carson. This is WJOPLP 96.3. I'm here with Allison Ewing, and we're talking about the AP African American Studies course. And, the thing that you shared, which is exciting, and the fact that what a wonderful field trip this could possibly or potentially be for you and your students. When I was at the African American Museum in DC, and I've been twice, and okay, when I say twice, I don't know if I should say this publicly, but I'm just going to say it. And I was in DC for a conference for 2 days, and my wife was with me, and it was one of those things where at the time, this was in 2017, so I was at my previous institution. I would we would get up that morning and we'd have to hit the button to try to get, because you don't have to pay for your tickets, but you got to get in line. And so we got in. First day we got lucky, we hit. Second day we were in a long line, and a bus full of people didn't show, and so this guy was walking out and handing out tickets, and we got in. We spent, I don't know, somewhere between 16 and 18 hours over 2 days in that. Not the best way to do it. But the thing that jumps out at me the most when you think about the rich culture and the heritage and the things we're learning and how we're going to see this even resembled in your course was I was walking in the museum, and there was a picture of a Black family living in Chicago. And this is roughly around, I don't know, somewhere between 1910 and 1915. And this is a Black family. where their black son had a Sewickley Academy sweatshirt, which is in Pennsylvania. And I was struck by it. I took a picture of it and I sent that email to the head of school at Sewickley Academy saying, I don't know if you know anything about this, but it's fascinating because this is a family that's not at Sewickley Academy. It's a day school, right? He's wearing this sweatshirt, and you want to know more about that history. And I've yet to really delve in. I should do a little bit more work, but it's just fascinating, those stories and the stories that you're going to be able to tell about
Mhm.
this.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm excited. I can't wait. I cannot wait. Yeah.
As we get to the end of Race Matters here, Allison, one of the questions that I wanted to ask you, and as we're thinking about this a little bit more, is that what if you had to pick one piece of content? And this is a tough question, and I apologize immediately because I'm not even sure how I would answer this. But if you had to pick one piece of content that you're really excited about, we all have those
Mhm.
those things, right? We all have them that you want to just lesson plan and explore and run these great discussions. What topic is it that you want to delve into in AP African American Studies the most?
Oh my gosh, I know it. I don't even have to think about it. So, um, one of the things that fascinates me about history is, and you're gonna have to help me out here, Eddie, how I explain this.
Go for it.
It's the idea that a lot of events and things that have happened are because people know each other, like the good old boys club, like
Mhm.
you hear about that with the Civil War, like so and so they went to West Point together, like how do these people end up rubbing shoulders with each other, and how did that happen, like. And so I've always been fascinated by this sort of um yeah, I don't know, these chance encounters and people somehow know each other. So anyway, all that to say, one of the things that I find fascinating about especially the civil rights movement, but even way before that, is sort of um, how wisdom has been passed from generation to generation. The fact that um, A. Philip Randolph originated the idea of the March on Washington back in, help me out with the year. I'm a history teacher.
1940s.
40. Thank you. I'm a history teacher and I'm terrible at years.
No, no, that's okay.
I at least know what it came. So he originated this idea, and for a variety of reasons, it didn't come to fruition. Okay. But he remained involved. And then up comes this, young guy, who's sort of, coming into his own as a pastor and kind of MLK, A. Philip Randolph mentors MLK, and then there's all these other people in the mix, with talking about the March on Washington and organizing and planning. And then you get this like young kid who had been involved in the freedom rides and happened to write a letter to MLK, saying, I'm interested, what do I do? And writes this letter. And then he's giving the opening speech. Do you know who I'm talking about? Do you know, James? Yeah. So gives this opening speech on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial to introduce MLK's I Have a Dream speech. And not to mention that in the speech that James Lewis was going to originally give, he was actually censored. They made him take out the speech about the part about police brutality from his opening speech. But it's just so interesting to me that, a lot of students think they know how the, civil rights movement started, and, that it, oh, it was Martin Luther King Jr. who had this idea, bus boycott and everything. And it's actually, no, there's this trail of wisdom and experience that you can take that back even further than A. Philip Randolph. Like, it's just a starting point. But how fascinating is that some young kid, college kid, writes a letter to Martin Luther King Jr. and, like, I don't know, however many years he's giving a speech on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial because he happened to write a letter, and then MLK is going, well, this is a kid I should mentor and have a
Well,
like.
and I mean,
Who does that?
well, you think about Lewis and you think about that relationship that'll continue over the next, I mean, that's 63, then we know what's going to happen, particularly in 64. Then we get to the March in 65,
Yes,
right?
yes,
From Selma to
yes,
Montgomery.
yes.
So, oh, I got to tell you, I'm getting jazzed about hearing this and, the great work you're going to do. Folks, thank you so much for chiming into Race Matters. I'm Eddie Carson, and you've had the privilege, like I have had the privilege of listening to Allison Ewing really show that level of of intellectual thrust and enthusiasm and that energy that's there. Thank you for chiming in. Have
Thank
a
you for
good day, and we'll see you next episode. Allison, it's been a blessing, my friend.
having me. Wonderful.
I hope this is not the last time.
Me too. No, it won't be the last.
All
Thank you.
right. All right.